Good day, fellow vintage baseball card flippers. My name is Brad of Chai Sox Cardboard, and this is the fourth episode of a series that I'm calling Confessions of a Vintage Flipper. I haven't done one in about a month, though, so let me just kind of reorient potentially the viewer to this series that I'm doing, which really covers flipping vintage baseball cards for a profit in order to fund, at least partially fund, my personal collection. I really stick with vintage baseball when it comes to flipping. I mean, I might dabble into the '90s with folks that are already in the Hall of Fame or near Hall of Famers, like Don Mattingly or something along those lines. But I really don't get into the modern and really modern, or definitely not ultra modern space when it comes to flipping. And part of the reason is that one thing that I enjoy about flipping vintage baseball cards is owning the vintage baseball cards for a few days or weeks or months. Sometimes I kind of disappointed by how quickly I'm able to flip them and how short I am able to own them. But part of what I enjoy about flipping vintage is that I get to own a lot of different vintage cards for short periods of time that I otherwise wouldn't be able to own. Now, I do think there's maybe a little bit of a belief out there that it's very, very difficult to make money flipping vintage, and I have not found that to be the case. It's very difficult to make large margins of profit on flipping vintage, but it's not difficult to make money turning around vintage product. And there's kind of three ways to do it, all of which involve some sort of glitch in the vintage card market that you've got to find and exploit. The one easy glitch to exploit is auctions, and there are tons of auctions ending every single day, many thousands ending every single day, and you just have to find the ones that end at a price that is lower than it should, and that happens. We've got a pretty robust card market. You know, if you throw a card on eBay that's worth $100 and started at 99 cents, there aren't very many instances where that card is going to go for 99 cents or $5 or $10 or even $50. I mean, for the most part, you're going to get sales that range from, I don't know, $70 to $130, depending on various factors. But if you can get a nice eye appeal card at $75 of a card that usually goes for $100, you can exploit that glitch in the market, even after taxes and shipping and fees and stuff like that. So that's one way. The other way is to buy in bulk. So you find somebody who's looking to sell a more substantial portion of their collection, and they understand that in exchange for the convenience of selling it to a single person and not really having to deal with selling multiple cards, they are going to get less than your average comp on any individual card. And the third glitch in the market is when somebody just needs immediate cash. And as they say, cash is king. And sometimes if somebody's got a card that they need to turn into cash in, a day, sometimes you can get a decent deal on that card. And so there are ways to make money flipping vintage. And in my last episode 3 on this topic, I explained and showed by the numbers how much I made in 2024, and certainly I'm not getting rich off of it, but it has helped supplement my hobby budget and supplement my personal collection, and I've really enjoyed that. So one of the ways I'm going to talk about Mickey Mantle today, and Mickey Mantle obviously in the Hall of Fame, and one of the ways, or really the way that I collect Hall of Famers who are not White Sox players, is I start with $100 and I flip my way to a card that I want to keep long term. That card might be $100, or it might be $1,000, or somewhere in between. Or it might be less than $100. Like I've got a Randy Johnson rookie in my collection that cost about $50, and I'm not going to sell that just in an effort to chase a card that's worth more than $100. I'll just keep the $50 card and maybe use the other 50 to keep flipping. And so that's one way that I've really enjoyed collecting Hall of Famers, because I'm able to own uh, nice cards, but not break the bank type cards, and kind of move my way up to cards that I might want to keep long term. Now, this method of collecting does pose some problems for pre-war Hall of Famers. Like you're not going to find a lot of Hall of Fame T206 cards at under a $100 price point. I haven't really solved that problem in my collection yet. I just have been focusing primarily on post-war. So that'll have to come later. Maybe I'll change the way I'm collecting at some point when I've arrived at a more satisfying state of my post-war Hall of Fame vintage collection. But for now, that's the way I'm collecting Hall of Famers. And in that context, I am driving towards a 1965 Topps Mickey Mantle in order to complete my 1965 Topps set, which, if you want to look at that series, the Season in a Set Project series, you can. But right now, I don't have the mantle for that set. And obviously, that's the most difficult, or at least most expensive card to get. And I'm looking to get the whole set the whole set in X-Mint condition, so the equivalent of PSA 6. But I want to get all of the Hall of Famers in slabs, so PSA or SGC. I don't have a strong preference over which, but a mantle in PSA 6 right now is comping at about $900, and in an SGC 6 is comping at about $800. So I've got a ways to go based on the method that I'm using for collecting Hall of Famers. And so I had to get started. I started this 1965 Topps set project about a year ago. I'd like to finish this year. I've kind of ramped it up a little bit in the last few months, and I've made more significant progress in the last few months than I did in the first 9 to 10 months of collecting the set. So I'm getting there, but I've got a ways to go, and one of the big hurdles is certainly the mantle. So I drive to a 1965 Topps Mickey Mantle in SGC or PSA 6 or better. The card that I started with was not a card at all. It was this 1960 Armor Coins Mickey Mantle, which I picked up for a total price of $79.88. I got it on eBay. That was part of the glitch in the auction world. I got it at a low price. I think it comps typically at a little bit above 100 at the time. I got it for 80, and that's my cost basis. So that's after taxes, it's after shipping, it's after all of that. So $79.88 to me in September of 2024. And by late October, so about 5-6 weeks, I had sold it on to a fellow user on Net54 for $110. After all of the after all of the shipping and handling costs involved, I came away with a total profit of $8.75, so just over 10%. So I felt good about that. But I started doing some math, and if I start with $100 and I make 10% per transaction on that $100 and apply compound profit to that, I've got to do that 23 times in order to make enough to buy a PSA 6 Mickey Mantle, 1965 Topps Mickey Mantle. And so 23 seemed like a lot, and I had felt pretty good about being able to move this coin in 5 or 6 weeks. So even if I could improve on that on average and move a Mickey Mantle at a 10% profit every single month, it would take me approximately 2 years to gather the funds necessary to purchase the 1965 card. And so that seemed like a long time. I'm impatient by nature. This hobby really helps me kind of handle some of my impatience and work on that character defect, but that still seemed like a long time. And so I contribute new money every single month, new hard-earned money that I make at my day job. I contribute that every single month, and that's where the $100 per Hall of Famer comes in. But I've got little extra streams of money here and there, like really quite small, but they do add up over time. And that's a topic for a whole nother episode that I may do on here at some point. But the bottom line is I had a little bit more to work with. And so a couple months later, I purchased this 1950 Topps number 10 Mickey Mantle in fair grade, a PSA 1.5. I purchased that in December, nope, right at the end of November 2024, for a cool 179.50, which I think was about $20-30 below comps. And I actually thought it was a pretty good copy of this card given the grade. The centering is pretty decent. There was a little bit of wrinkling on the front, but no major creases. The coloring was pretty good. So as compared to your average 1.5 card, I thought it was pretty good. And so I was hoping to get 225 out of it, a net 225. And I'll just pause there because this one I also picked up at auction on eBay, so a glitch in the auction market. But I have found that particularly for Hall of Famers, it's going to be very difficult to make even a 10% profit if you are both buying and selling on eBay. So typically one of those transactions is going to need to be off eBay, where folks are not paying taxes, you are not paying fees, and a lot of those sort of peripheral costs of the transaction are cut out. And so, as I explained on the coin, I purchased it on eBay and sold it off eBay to a user on Net54. And in this case, I also purchased this mantle on eBay, so I was looking to hopefully be able to move it off of eBay through some other means. But I listed it on eBay. I kind of listed it across the board, and I was working hard to sell it. I thought it should be pretty liquid and would be not too terribly difficult to sell, but I was coming up on 2 months, and I hadn't been able to sell it despite my best efforts. And now I'm thinking about, I'm trying to do this basically every month and hope to get to a 1965 within a year or 18 months. And here we are, I'm nearly 2 months into this card and still pretty early on the journey, and I'm having trouble moving it. So I was getting a little bit antsy. And in that context, somebody reached out to me through Net54 and asked if I would be interested in making a trade. And I've been wary of trades in general, maybe because I think that other folks are smarter than me, and if they're looking to trade, they must think that they can pull one over on me or something. I don't exactly know why I'm wary of trades. I've made a few trades in the last 15 months or so, and all of them I've been happy with. And actually, they typically yield better relationships. You just make friends in the hobby. I think easier when you're transacting in cards instead of transacting in cash. And so I don't know why my default is to sort of shy away from trades, but I was not desperate, that's a strong word, but I was itching to move this card, and somebody reached out to me and suggested a possible trade. And so I took it seriously, and I started to look into the cards that they were offering. And this individual had some real nice cards, all Hall of Famers. I think they were all slabbed, and they were all kind of in the $50 to $200 range in terms of values. And so I started looking through the list and kind of putting together a few that might add up to the mantle. And this individual was very interested in the mantle. And so I thought there's a decent chance that we're going to be able to make a trade here. And so I was looking at his cards, and one of his cards was this 1971 Carew. And so I was hoping to get about 225 out of that mantle, like I said. But if you're trading, you need kind of a higher value than that, because you have to basically factor it in as two transactions, right? You've got to get the cards in trade, and then they need to, if you're working to flip, they need to be resellable at a higher price point. So I was looking to get a value of around 250, maybe if I got lucky, maybe 275 out of this trade. And so I was kind of piecing together his cards and assigning values to them in my mind. And this Rod Carew was one of them. And with this Carew and two other cards, the value was going to be right around 250. And so I messaged him and I said, hey, I'm interested in these three cards, but tell me about this Carew. It looks sharp, but what is that going on between the W and the I on the Twins? It looks like, is that on the card? It looks like somebody shot a small caliber bullet right through the card. And he said, yeah, that's on the card. And I was not familiar. I'm not especially familiar with the 1971 set. And I was not familiar with these print defects, and I'm still not familiar with the print defects. I did a really quick Google search and didn't find anything, and I decided I didn't want this card because I can't see anything other than that print defect on this card, and I was assuming that others would feel the same way, and so that the resale value probably would not be there. So I'm kind of hoping that I didn't miss an opportunity at some rare print defect that actually goes for great money. If I did, please tell me so that I can be educated. But anyway, I had to take that one off the table, and so I was looking back at his cards, and he had been touting this 1959 K-line that he had, which was even if you were not assigning it kind of an extra value based on its eye appeal, which he thought it looked great for the grade, it was still valued at more than that Carew. So if you start adding up the numbers, I mean, I thought, boy, if I ask for this K-line plus the other two cards that I'm looking for, the trade value on my end and to my benefit is going to, at least in my estimation, substantially outweigh the trade value of the Mantle. But I thought, hey, he's touting this 59 K line. He thinks it's really great, but he's also clearly interested in moving it for the Mantle, because he's really talking it up. And so I asked him, would you trade the K line plus the other two cards that I'm interested in for this Mantle? And he came back and said yes. And so I was thrilled because I was valuing the three cards at about $320 in resale, and I was only valuing the Mantle at about $225 in resale. And so I was thrilled. He made the trade. He even offered to trade. He even offered to send his cards first, which I took him up on that offer, and he did. And I received them, and I sent off the Mantle. I just confirmed this morning that he received the Mantle and he's happy with it. I actually asked him if he wanted to participate in this episode. He politely declined, but said, feel free to talk about it. Feel free to show my cards. I mean, three of them are my cards now, but that Carew isn't. So I asked him if I could show that one. But in the end, I made a trade that I think was pretty well stacked in my favor. And so I'll show off the three cards that I received from him in that trade. The first is 1953 Bowman Nellie Fox, Bowman color Nellie Fox. Not really well centered. I've said before that centering is important to me, but not the most important thing, as it is to many others. And so I wasn't too upset about that. This card comped at about 70, and I valued it at about 65 for the trade purposes because of the centering issues. But I need this for my Nellie Fox run. It's a White Sox card, so this one's going straight into my personal collection. The next card that came was, in fact, this Al Kaline, and it is, I would say, every bit as gorgeous as my trade partner made it out to be. I'll bring it even a little bit closer here. Every bit as gorgeous as he was touting it to be. Well centered. That doesn't really do it justice. Maybe it's better if I just let it be still. But well centered, coloring is great. I cannot. I am not sure why it couldn't be a 7.5 or even an 8. The corners are sharp. Everything looks great about it. The only thing I can think of is that the registration in K-Line's face, well, I mean the registration on the whole card, but in K-Line's face is not perfect, but I don't know that I've looked and I don't know that it's any better on any other cards. I mean, some cards, the registration just isn't perfect. The photograph that was used isn't as good as other photographs, or the photography at the time just wasn't as sharp or whatever. And I don't think this registration is any worse than your average 1959 Topps K-Line. So I am thrilled with this card. I mean, the seller did not overstate the quality of that card, and in the end, I think I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna turn that into one of the cards that I keep of K-Line. So it's valued. The comps are at about 150 for a PSA 7. I would value it at more like 175. Based on just the quality as compared to other examples of PSA 7s. And so I believe I'm going to keep that one in my personal collection, which I wasn't necessarily planning to do when I made the trade. And then the last one here is a 1956 whiteback Ernie Banks in PSA 3.5. I'll flip it long way so that I can get a little bit closer. Really, a really strong version of this card for 3.5. I think the centering is good. The corners certainly are what drive the grade, but they're sort of evenly worn. And the coloring and registration are real good. Like I said, the centering is good. I'll show the back here. My tastes are a little bit higher quality for my personal collection, so I'm not planning to keep this, but I am. It is available for sale, so if anybody is interested, I am looking to get about 85 net out of it. Comps are at about 80, but I think it is nicer than your average 3.5, and so I'm looking to get to net about 85 out of it. And if you're interested, hit me up, chisoxcardboard@gmail.com, or post in the comments. It is available for sale, and I think at 85 net, to me, it is a good deal for someone who wants to put it in their long-term collection. You can see it on MySlabs and eBay at a higher price point, but as I've mentioned before, my listings on MySlabs and eBay are all buy it now with best offer option, and they are priced. They are designed to be priced competitively against other cards on eBay and MySlabs, and they are designed to come down in price when people make an offer. So feel free to jump on there if you'd like the protection of buying either on MySlabs or eBay, and make me an offer there as well. So I ended up with what I thought was about $320 worth of cards for that mantle. But it poses a problem because 2 of those cards I want to keep. So I can't just sell those 3 cards and then reinvest the profits into the mantle because I want to keep 2 of the cards. But I also need to continue my progress towards a 1965 mantle. I need to do some interesting accounting. And so got that kind of pulled up over here. Here are the 3 cards that I purchased, or didn't purchase, I traded for. Here are the values that I assigned them in terms of the cost basis. So that adds up to what, 115 plus 128, so a cost basis of about $245 total. So that's the 240. So 240 of that went back to mantle, and the extra 5 was shipping. And then I go over here, and basically I've got 4 pots of money when it comes to my collecting. I've got inventory that is purely designed to buy and sell. I've got White Sox cards, which I want to keep long term. I've got Hall of Fame cards, which, as we discussed, I'm looking to sort of build up each Hall of Famer to a card that I want to keep. And then I've got my sort of special mantle project here, where in order to get to that 1965 Topps mantle, and so there's extra revenue streams that go into that pot of money. But the bottom line is, I assigned the values of these cards to the various pots of money, and then you can see on the K line here, because I hadn't built up any equity in K line, I can only assign $100 to K line because that's how I work. So somehow with K line, I've got to reimburse my inventory pot of money, $28.95, and so that's how I did kind of the interesting accounting. If anybody's interested in understanding that any more, it's probably kind of boring to most people, but I'd be happy to talk with anybody about that. That's part of the thing that I find the most fun about this hobby is the accounting of it all, and how to make the dollars and cents work, and kind of tracking them. And so with that money, plus the additional revenue streams for the mantle project that I've been mentioning here, I was able to purchase another card just the other day, and it is this 1967 Topps Mickey Mantle in SGC6. Pretty darn well centered. I think people have called this his mugshot photo, his mugshot card, because it does kind of look like a mugshot. So I think most people, and myself included, don't see this as the most beautiful of Mantle's cards. But we're looking, like I said, I'm just looking to own this briefly and then turn it into a profit. And so purchased this card off of somebody on Net54. So like I discussed, at least one of these transactions, usually for Hall of Famers, needs to be outside of eBay. So this purchase was already outside of eBay, so doing well on that front. And this purchase was from somebody who was looking for quick cash. And so they were willing to take, they had it posted for $450, which was a very fair offer. They ended up taking $375 for it. Which is a pretty darn good deal for me, but the gentleman needed the cash. He was completely upfront about needing the cash. In the end, he sold it to me for $375, and I don't have it yet. It's in the mail, but I am looking forward to getting it, owning it briefly, and hopefully flipping it for a profit. And I think I should be able to flip it for a decent profit. If we look on VCP, we can see that in SGC6, it has an average price of $486.64. That average price is based on a year's worth of sales or 10 sales, and we can see plenty of SGC6 sales in the last year. So there's good data that help us arrive at that 486 price point. I think the card itself looks to me like it's at least an average SGC6. I sort of wonder whether the SGC6 prices are inflated a little bit because your PSA 6 prices are also at exactly 486 average, and typically PSA 6 or PSA prices in the same grade are going to be between 10 and 20% more than the card. So I'm not certain that 486 on SGC, that could be artificially high a little bit, but let's say it's even just 450. If I can get 450 net out of this card, that's a 20% profit, and it would put me, we're not there yet, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but it would put me at halfway to a PSA 6 or PSA 6 1965 Topps Mickey Mantle, which is what I need to finish the set. So part of why I wanted to make this episode is just to demonstrate for folks out there that this is a way to kind of supplement your hobby income and work your way into nicer cards and cards that you're really happy with on a budget. Now I'm lucky enough to be able to contribute a decent amount of money per month to this hobby, but it's not I mean, if I wanted to go out and buy the PSA 6 Mickey Mantle in just based on the money that I contribute each month, I would have to save up for 3 or 4 months in order to do that without purchasing anything else. And I would, that's a long time. At least that's a long time for me, an impatient guy. So I would much rather take a year, 18 months to get my PSA 6 Mickey Mantle, and in the meantime, own a bunch of other Mickey Mantles. And so that's what I really enjoy about flipping vintage baseball cards. So this is just an example of how I'm doing it for the Mantle. Hopefully tune in 6 or 9 or 12 months, and we'll be able to report that I've turned this money into a PSA 6 or an SGC 6 Mickey Mantle for the 1965 Topps complete set. All right, I would be interested to know what people think about the trade in particular, what people think about the other individual or myself, or who got the better end of the deal. I mean, I certainly think that I got the better end of the deal, but that's another thing that's interesting about trades, because he didn't have to make the trade, and all of the information that's available to me is available to him. I don't have any special corner on the market about this information, and so knowing what he knew, he still felt that trading those 3 cards for my 1959 Topps Mickey Mantle in PSA 1.5 was a good deal for him, and so we both felt good about the deals. And I just corresponded with him earlier this morning, and he was happy with the card that he received, and so we're both very happy with it. Again, I don't know why I'm reticent about making trades, because they seem to work for me every single time, and I've got the same amount of cash in my bank account as I started with, and I've got new cards in my collection that I wanted, and everything works out. So I'm going to be looking for more trades. So if you're looking, in particular, if you're interested in that Ernie Banks, reach out to me. Maybe we can make a trade. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. And with that, as always, collect what you love, flip what you like.